Times today, we're remembering a virtuoso violinist who survived the horrors of the Holocaust to become one of the most preeminent musicians in Britain. Bela Dekany passed away in December. I'm looking to Bela's son, actually, for confirmation that I've pronounced it correctly. I'm sure you'll tell me in a moment. Béla Dekany passed away in December at the age of 94. He was regarded as a superb instrumentalist with a distinctly elegant tone and as a skillful leader of the BBC Symphony Orchestra. His achievements were all the more remarkable because of his horrendous experiences in concentration camps during the Second World War. Helping me remember him are Andy Dekany, his son, and journalist Tom Gross, a writer and friend. Andy, welcome to the programme. Approximately, did I get the pronunciation right?
I think you did pretty well there, Mariella.
Thank you very much. Now, tell me a little bit about your father.
So he was a beautiful, caring man, very much a perfectionist, with a varied career playing under many of the great conductors. Yes, his background, obviously, as you touched upon, is something that influenced him, right from the very early days.
How would you say that had impacted on him as a person? I mean, a lot of people, as survivors, as he was, found it impossible to talk about, didn't want to discuss what had happened to them, and wanted only to look forwards and embrace the life. Was he one of those people?
Yes, very much so. We always knew about his background and the detail, but he only went into it in later life. He filled the gaps in, so to speak, and we really enjoyed in later life actually finding out more about how he dealt with all of the problems and how he pushed himself. It was wonderful to actually get to know that when he was able to open up.
I mean, he sounds like he had incredible strength. Tom, you interviewed him 3 years ago, I think. It's thought to be the only substantial interview that Bela ever gave about his life. What are your memories of it?
Yes, well, it was during the first COVID lockdown, and I think that Bela, who I knew already, was kind of, COVID made everyone come to terms with mortality. And Bela was already over 90, and I think having not spoken about it, as Andy said, in any great detail all those decades, he felt the need to do so. And it's quite a well-known phenomenon with survivors that it's very, very difficult for them to even speak to their children in any detail. And I guess he might have chosen me because he trusted me. I knew him, but I wasn't too close to him. So we recorded an interview over Zoom. He was completely alone during COVID because his wife had died 3 or 4 years earlier. So he was all by himself for almost 2 years, apart from very occasional visits by Andy. His daughter was stuck in Australia, and as you know, people couldn't travel during COVID from Australia. But going back to the question of the Holocaust, I don't think one can underestimate the magnitude that the Holocaust, cast a shadow over survivors, including Bela. I was just listening to your previous guest talking about the horrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria. And I was thinking, today, as horrible as it is, there's counselling, there's, trauma centres and so on. There was nothing for a survivor like Bela. He was 15. His mother, who had survived several camps with him, died about 6 or 7 hours after the end of the war of disease and starvation. So, his father had already died when he was 1 year old. His de facto father, who helped bring him up, who was, in fact, a cousin 16 years older, was also murdered in the Holocaust. And then I'd like to just add another thing that he didn't say, but it occurred to me. He was very much a man of music. He said music is my religion and my passion and so on. And the very same people of which music he loved so much, Bach and Beethoven and so on, are the same ones that put him through hell and murdered his family for of course, doing absolutely nothing wrong. He was rounded up in Hungary. He was then taken to a slave labor camp in Austria. He was then taken to the Belsen death camp in Germany, where, by the way, he was at the same time as Anne Frank, who was a few months younger than him. They were both teenagers in Belsen. And finally, as the British were about to liberate Belsen, he was transferred to Theresienstadt in the Czech Republic, so where a lot of the guards were Czech. So we have Hungarians, Austrians, Germans, and Czechs, the very same people who have made such amazing classical music, which Béla loved to play and to listen to. Anyway,
Andy,
that's my...
that was beautifully expressed, and thank you very much for that. Tell me a little bit then, Andy, about his musical career, because he started playing when he was young, and it really was his passion, as has just been described there by Tom, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. So he started learning the violin age 6, and by the age of 10, he'd progressed so fast that he was accepted by the Franz Liszt Academy in Budapest. And obviously, age 10, it caused quite a stir, newspaper articles, etc. So, he did amazingly well to get there, but it caused a few difficulties. Age 10 in Budapest was something that, he had to cope. And one of the things that I think affected him through his life is that he felt that perhaps he wasn't pushed hard enough when he did get to the academy. He could have practiced harder. And that was quite interesting because it did affect his life later on in terms of his perfectionist kind of outlook.
Was he a perfectionist? Yes,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
I just can't imagine him feeling that he hadn't tried hard enough when just surviving must have been, it was his greatest achievement, really, against those odds. I think it was around the time of his 40th birthday that he became leader of the BBC Symphony Orchestra, a significant role which he retained for more than 20 years. Just tell me how important that was to him.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. You've got to remember that he became a British citizen in Australia, and he was very proud of being British. And to lead the BBC for such a period of time was something that he was extremely proud of, as are we. So he played with all the or under all the great conductors. But he particularly enjoyed playing with Günter Wand. And one of the reasons in particular was that Günter was quite hard on the orchestra, that they wanted, or he wanted rather, to practice, rehearse more and more, which fitted in ideally with what my father wanted.
Absolutely. Sounds like that would have been right up his street. But I'm very, very grateful to you for coming in and talking to me about the life of Béla Dekany, who died on the 27th of December, aged 94. Thank you to both my guests, his son Andy, and of course writer Tom Gross. Thank you.